The gentleman from Texas, Mr. Flores, is recognized.
Thank you, Secretary Angel and Chairman Jones, for joining us today. The opening remarks I found to be fascinating about a parallel universe, and there really is a parallel universe. You've got the real world where people that know when they go to fill their tank up that the oil that produce that gasoline comes from hardworking Americans and companies that spend trillions of dollars of investment in getting that oil out of the ground and refined and into people's tanks. Now, when you live here in fantasy land in Washington, D.C., a lot of people think it comes from the gas pump when you put your credit card in it. So there is a parallel universe, and I'm glad to have people from the real world here that understand what actually happens. I also appreciate your comments on strategic reserves. The strategic reserves this country has are not in the strategic petroleum reserves. They're under the ground, owned by the taxpayers, offshore and on public lands. And the quicker that we get our arms around this and recognize this and the value of those assets to the taxpayer and to our economy and to our educational systems, the better off we'll be. Now, I want to provide my condolences to everybody that was impacted by the Macondo incident, particularly the families that lost loved ones. But I don't think that it's appropriate to shut down an entire industry just because of one accident, and I believe that's happened. We do have a de facto moratorium. The statistics prove it. The metrics are there. It's very clear because we're not issuing permits. Let me go on. By the way, and I wanted to say that I've introduced two pieces of legislation to try to address this issue. Number one is a lease extension act to give those operators who, through no fault of their own, were adversely impacted by this moratorium to extend those leases for a year. And today we're going to introduce legislation to remove the bureaucratic overreach from the permitting process, and also to codify the timelines of the permitting process, fairly similar to what you were talking about, Chairman Jones. Those will be hopefully considered soon and will help this process. Chairman Jones, you talked a little bit right at the end of your testimony about the difference between permits and pushing paperwork. And I think that there's an implication coming from the administration that people are not interested in drilling in the Gulf of Mexico anymore because the volume of permits are down. I think there is somebody's hiding something here in terms of what a permit is. Can you help clarify that for the benefit of the committee? What's a permit and what's actually happening there in terms of these metrics?
I don't know, Congressman, if you actually said hide and go seek, but I think that's what I heard you say, and that's what's going on at this time. And so the reality is there is a permitorium, regardless, maybe not, if you don't want to call it de facto moratorium, there is a permitorium. And they are using, the agency is using tools. They're returning the paperwork back to the companies, forcing them for more information. One of our operators in Texas, actually, he said, there's just no more information I can give them. I can't help but think that if these people are so intelligent as we expect them to be, that they don't know what they're doing. And so what is going on is an attempt to slow down the process to get the hydrocarbons out of the ground. I will go back to this one particular, and there are many stories like it, what is going on, and that is why I'm here, to bring the message of what is really happening, not what you think is happening in fantasy land up here in Washington, Congressman, and I appreciate your sensitivity to what's going on in the field, and that is that the permits for old, already permitted wells are not being let, and our country is worse off for it. And our energy security and the lives of Americans, the quality of life who depend on energy security and what it can do for our country, we are not reaping the benefits of the responsible production of the oil that is in the Gulf of Mexico. And I would suggest that as the tragedy, the sadness of the tragedy that took place, it will be another tragedy if America cannot be energy secure in the coming decades.
Mr. Chairman, how much time do I have left? Oh. Can you give me 5-second answers, each of you, on the impact, financial impact on your states of the loss of revenue from the moratorium?
We are experiencing a $1.5 billion budget deficit in Louisiana, partially because of the lack of activity in the Gulf of Mexico and the revenue that would present to the state.
Chairman Jones.
Houston is home to many of the companies that are drilling in the outer continental shelf. The headquarters are in Harris County. At this point, they are letting people go. We're seeing an approximate 2,500 jobs lost, $622 million in our GDP, and $153 million in wages. There's no state and no country that can afford these kind of losses for much longer.
Thank you.
Time of the gentleman has expired.